lot of people here, some people wearing suits and ties and all types of stuff, and Jason Kim brought a parachute. I don't know why he brought a parachute. He thinks he's going to jump out of a plane.
It's great to be here, and I enjoyed my drive up through the Pennsylvania countryside this afternoon. Lovely town, and it's great to meet you all.
Yeah, and the good news is Alan will be here tomorrow, all day.
All day, yeah.
Including for Quantum of Solace, the movie.
Yes, I'm actually here through Monday morning. So.
Yeah, so we'll give you his hotel and hotel room. No, just be nice is what I'm asking. But one of the things that Alan has an auspicious proclivity to is the Ian Fleming world. And because of that, we're going to be talking about the Ian Fleming Foundation. As part of his introduction, he is the president of the Ian Fleming Foundation. So we're extremely excited to have him. But Alan, I wanted to start off in a very simple way. We're going to get to Ian Fleming. We'll get to the Ian Fleming Foundation. We got to talk about Alan Porter. I feel like we're going to have a duck come down. Alan Porter, this is your life. But tell us, how on earth did you even get interested and engaged in the world of James Bond?
Well, as you can probably tell from the funny voice, I'm not from around these parts originally. So this goes back to the other side of the pond. Must have been 1968. A school friend of mine was given the Thunderball board game for his birthday, and this is not the board game that you got over here. It was the Triang Waddington's board game you could only get in the UK, which instead of having cardboard figures, had plastic action figures.
Hold on a second, Alan. Before you go on, I read this story. Look what we brought for you today.
Oh, awesome.
Just a little souvenir. It is one of the classic figures.
So one of the figures was like this, but had a big jetpack on his back. And I was like, who's that guy? And we looked at the box and it said that was James Bond. And I had no idea who James Bond was. But he was the coolest guy in the set. And I went home and I must have talked about James Bond because that Christmas my parents got me the Corgi DB5 and that year's James Bond annual full of pictures of Sean Connery, comic strips, articles about Bond. That was it, basically. That was the rest of my life ruined.
Yeah. Now, we don't want to age you at all. We're all ruined here, by the way. We're what you would call damaged goods. But what year was that? Was that 65?
68. 67 or 68.
67 or 68.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know Thunderball came out in 65, but the board game was around for several years.
Right.
Yeah.
So were you then... But interestingly enough, and again, I probably know too much about Alan, this is going to creep him out, but interestingly enough, though, Thunderball and the subsequent movies weren't really your first movie on the big screen from a Bond standpoint.
No, you've done too much research. So in '69, I entered a competition in our local newspaper to win 2 free movie tickets, and I won. So I decided to take my father to the next movie that was on, and it was on Her Majesty's Secret Service. And of course, where was Sean Connery? Where was the guy in the annual I'd been reading and all the school photos? And I was watching the movie and I was along for the ride, and then the guy went under the snowplow and George Lazenby turned around and said, he had guts. And 10-year-old me was like, I'm in.
Yeah. But, by the way, this is good because as you're telling these stories, and this is exactly what I was hoping for, storytelling on a Saturday night, is we all have that tipping point, right?
Yeah.
We all have where Bond is sort of interesting. I know a lot of you have talked about GoldenEye as a video game. as a tipping point. This is interesting. Hey, I'm having fun. Wait a minute, there's a movie, there's a VHS. Yours was pretty significant in that there's a contest. So you watch this movie, do you walk out of the theater saying, I need to research this? Like, what goes through a 10-year-old's head?
Well, this wasn't in the book, so you don't know this bit. So when we walked out of the movie theatre, my father's car had been broken into and somebody had stolen the radio. And 10-year-old me was like, I need to be James Bond and go find out who nicked my dad's radio. And so, yeah, I sort of, anything Bond related in the newspaper I was starting to read. And then I think the following year we went on vacation and to Wales, and there was the cottage we were in had a bunch of the Reader's Digest condensed books. And I pulled one off the shelf, and in there was Man with the Golden Gun. And that was my first Fleming at the age of 11, starting with the last book and a condensed version of it. It was a really good place to start. But that got me looking for Fleming and starting to read Fleming at the age of 11, 12 and so forth. My next thing was the comics. There was the regular James Bond comic in the British Daily Express newspaper. And when I got to my next school, which was a private school, it had a very nice library and it had the daily papers delivered every day. So I would get to school about half an hour before I needed to, and would go to the library and grab the Daily Express to be the first person at school to read the Daily Express that day. Of course, my teachers thought I was being very diligent in keeping up with current events. I was actually keeping up with 007 every single day and starting my school day with Bond, and I just became really enamored with actually the comic strips more than anything else.
I have so many questions, but one of the questions I wanted to know, because Bond to some generations was something that was sort of looked down upon. It's this pulpy kind of smut. When your family knew that you had such an interest in Bond and in reading these newspapers or teachers, was it applauded or was it sort of arched eyebrow?
Well, as far as I know, my teachers never figured out what it was I was actually reading.
Okay. Let me see if you turned it off. No, you're good. You're good? Yeah. Mariah Carey. Yeah. These are fitted.
And my father couldn't complain because he read The Saint, and we had a house full of Leslie Charteris books. So, Charteris, Fleming, it was pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. All right, so we were all sharing the vices in this family.
Yeah, and he was a preacher, by the way, for 50 years.
That's a cool preacher. You did well. So at what point, because I know that we've sort of jumped into the world of Fleming, you're reading the comics, you're consuming the books, you've got the movies sort of running in the background. Does something click, and at what age when you say, something, I think I might want to be an author, like this is really motivating me?
Oh, yeah. It was pretty much reading Fleming at that age. I wanted to start to tell stories. I had stories running around in my head. The thing is, I am actually marginally dyslexic. I can't spell. And this is the age before spell checkers. So when I went to school and said I want to be a writer, I was told there is no way you'll ever, ever, ever be a writer because you can't spell. Go be an engineer. Engineers have to write too, so I couldn't figure that one out. But I like messing around with vehicles and cars. I'm a big car guy, always have been. Planes, I've always been into machines. So that was seeming logical. So I actually didn't start seriously writing until I was leaving college. Taking a step back, when I went to do my careers day at school, and they were going to figure out what career you could have, and I said I wanted to do something that combined engineering and writing. I again was told there's no such job in the world. So after I graduated college, I joined British Aerospace in the technical publications department, and my first job was actually writing tech manuals for Concorde, which is a pretty good way of starting your career. And again, that was around the time computers were coming in, PCs, and this magic thing called a spell checker. And it was like, oh, I can write stuff and show it to other people now. And my wife, brilliantly, she sent off for one of those, we'll teach you to write. You'll become a published writer witin,
Oh my gosh.
you know, however many days. If you don't earn back the cost of the course, we'll refund it. I got as far as volume 2 before I sold my first magazine article, and I've been writing ever since.
Wow. Wow.
Thank you. And I took great pleasure in sending a copy of my first book back to the school library with a stinky notation in it.
Well revenged. Well revenged. All right, we need to make the escape, because one of the things I've enjoyed is your journey into the more, I'll call it the official world, if you will. And this is where we really can pare down, because, and I want to open this up by setting the table in a very blunt and realistic way. The Ian Fleming Foundation, when I've mentioned that to some people, especially in the last few years, some people say, oh yeah, I love their publications. Well, no, that's Ian Fleming Publications. Mm-hmm. This is Ian Fleming Foundation. And then some people go, oh, they're the car people. They get the cars back in order. And I said, you know something? There is so much more. This might be a wonderful venue over the next 36 hours to really tell the world and to tell more people about what the Ian Fleming Foundation is all about. But I'd like to first understand, how did you get into the Ian Fleming Foundation?
It's all Raymond Benson's fault.
Most things are.
Yeah. So one of a book I wrote around 2009 was to bring that love of Bond in comics full circle, and I wrote a book on the history of Bond in comics called James Bond, the Illustrated 007. Still available on Amazon, by the way. I called up a bookstore. I was trying to do some PR for it, and I called a bookstore in Houston that specializes in mystery books and thrillers and stuff like Murder by the Book, brilliant bookstore. And I called them up and said, would you be interested in doing a signing on a book about James Bond? And they were like, funny you should ask. We've got Raymond Benson in 2 weeks. Let me go ask Raymond if he'd be okay with you doing a joint signing. And I was like, no, don't do that. I'd never met him, I'd never spoken to him. He was just a name on a spine on a series of books I loved on my bookcase. And I got an email from Raymond, and it was like, yeah, come join me. So I did, and we did this great book signing, and of course we were chatting, and then we went out for dinner at Chewy's. If you've read any of Raymond's books, you know Chewy's is his favourite Tex-Mex. It does have a James Bond A tier plaque in every Chewy's in Texas, thanks to Raymond. So we were at Chewy's, and he said, well, you clearly know Bond, and you like cars. There's a bunch of guys you should get introduced to. And that was 15 years ago. And over that 15 years, I just got more and more involved in the foundation and the work they were doing with restoring the various vehicles. For those of you who don't know, the Ian Fleming Foundation has the world's largest private collection of on-screen used Bond vehicles and props. We currently own about 40 Bond vehicles. And there's great stories behind each of them, and if you want to swing by the table tomorrow, I'm happy to talk about them. But you're right, we had become the guys with the cars, and it had also become a small invitation-only group of people, so it was about 25, 30 of us who got together and worked on the cars. And from the foundation's point of view, they were very lucky that Eon had started to do these Bond in Motion exhibits. And Eon had never caught on that all these vehicles and stuff were actually assets. They would make a movie and then they would leave them behind, or they would literally take chainsaws to them, or throw them away, or give them away, and they were all over the place. And then they started to see the interest that the Bond in Motion things, so they started putting on these exhibits, but they didn't have a lot of vehicles. Sure, they had the Daniel Craig ones, but nothing before that. So the Ian Fleming Foundation ended up basically backfilling all the empty holes in the Bond in Motion ones. So did anybody here go to the Bond in Motion in Washington, D.C.?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, 19 of those vehicles were Ian Fleming Foundation vehicles. There was only about 3 Eon ones plus 1 from a private collector. Everything else was Ian Fleming Foundation vehicles.
Does that actually, do they note that at the exhibit?
There's on the plaques there was always from the Ian Fleming Foundation, but nothing else. And of course, with the change last year, the seismic change in Bond, Eon is no longer around, and basically the single source of income for the Ian Fleming Foundation disappeared overnight. So this is sort of to get your point. That caused some consternation within the organisation. The then leadership left. So there was a bit of a, I hate the word, but a bit of a power vacuum, for want of a better phrase. So we went through some thinking about, this is a new area for Bond, let's make it a new era for the Ian Fleming Foundation. And the thing is, during all that time and the focus had been on the vehicles, we'd actually also been doing a lot of stuff on the educational front that nobody had ever talked about. We have a rare books and manuscripts collection at the University of Illinois. We have been doing scholarships for the media school at the University of Illinois. We've done 18 scholarships over the years. And one of the new things we've done is just launched a teen literacy grant, and that's gone to the State University of New York in the Adirondacks. And the idea that's going to be an annual thing, aligned with schools that are in areas that have a connection to Fleming or Bond. So we had sort of made this decision 6 months or so ago, when I was lucky enough to basically be nominated and elected president. Excuse me. That while the vehicles are sexy and I love talking about them and it's fun stuff, they are an asset that is there to drive the purpose of the foundation and not the be all and end all of the foundation. So the foundation's focus now is to leverage the legacy of Fleming and Bond to basically empower the next generation of readers, writers, and filmmakers. We want to get young people involved with Fleming and Bond and help them in their creative endeavors. And the vehicles are a source of doing that, but we're actually moving more to a 60% fundraising model, and then the 40%, it comes from the vehicles because we don't have that regular, consistent source of income that we did have in the Eon days. And we've been pretty successful so far. We have 12 vehicles actually at a museum in Green Bay. We have 2 at the Studebaker Museum in South Bend, Indiana, currently, and we're talking to other museums about probably taking odd vehicles here and there. Because one of the things we want to do is not just collect vehicles and us work on them and sit there polishing them and keep them to ourselves. The idea is to share them with the Bond community and the wider community and other people, because I will tell you there is nothing like seeing the face of somebody walk in a hall and they spot the Lotus and their eyes light up. Or, you know, when my wife and I went to the Spy Museum in DC to go look at the exhibit, and we just went as members of the public, but we were both wearing our Ian Fleming Foundation t-shirts, and we walked in the door, and the lady on the ticket thing said, you know, here's your ticket, you can look round, but don't touch our vehicles. And Jill and I went, they're not your vehicles, they're ours. And by the way, we've already touched them all. So we ended up walking around, and I ended up doing basically an impromptu guided tour for a bunch of people who were in there, telling them the stories of the vehicles and where they came from and the stories behind them all. And again, just seeing people connect with them in that way. But also just the feedback we're starting to get from other people involved in the education space about what we're trying to do there. The philanthropy side of things that we're really starting to move. And we're also, I was mentioning this to somebody earlier, we're also really opening up the lines of communication, talking to folks like David. I was at Ian Fleming Publications in London last week, talking to them, rebuilding that relationship, and moving away from it being an invitation-only closed environment of the foundation to actually opening it up. Anybody who wants to volunteer, we have a volunteers application form on the website now. We have a community newsletter that's open and public that anybody can subscribe to. And really getting more on social media, doing more events like this, introducing the board and the people who are involved, and really starting to open it up. So that was a very long answer to your question.
No. You were here to tell a story, and you did. And by the way, for those playing along at home, take some water.
Okay.
One of the things I want to point out, and why I feel very passionate about getting behind not just the Ian Fleming Foundation, but people like John Cork and Alan in particular, is because getting people interested in Ian Fleming is not just something that's cool because we're James Bond fans. If you look at what's happening in the world of movies today, Stephen Knight, the writer of the new Bond film, only cites one inspiration, Ian Fleming. Amy Pascal, who has done Spider-Man and all these amazing films, only has cited one inspiration. Two, actually. She said Barbara Broccoli, but beyond that, she said Ian Fleming. We really feel very passionate about introducing Ian Fleming to people that just say, well, James Bond is a film. But behind that is Ian Fleming and the works and a foundation. And one of the greatest joys that you talked about, and there was a method to my madness when we were prepping for this. I said, I want to start off when you were a kid and how you got interested. Everybody here, and I see, I'm sorry, I'm going to just say this, younger people, older people, we have all different age groups, but everybody has a story of how you became interested in James Bond. But none of that had been sparked without Ian Fleming. When we go back to the books, there's so much richness to it. And that's what I think it's all about. It's very easy to get intoxicated into the beauty, the aesthetics of the cars and the vehicles. And that is a good one. I mean, I'm heading to this amazingly exotic location called Benton Harbor, Michigan. I've never heard of it either. But I've been graciously invited to go see these vehicles and actually take a wrench to work on a couple of Bond vehicles.
I'm not sure we're going to give you a wrench.
We have this on tape. Who says tape?
I don't know, we've got some cleaning cloths and some...
I've always said I would be happy to be the guy almost sweeping in the background, but not quite sweeping. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, as I said, we have vehicles in various museums at the moment, but we have a central warehouse in Benton Harbor, Michigan, currently. And that was a big fun thing last year. We actually used to have a hangar at an airport in Illinois, and just as we were going through all the trauma, and the change of leadership and the new direction, the lease on the hangar ran out, and they were like, you've got 30 days to move all these vehicles. Well, find a new home and move all these vehicles.
By the way, when you say vehicles, everybody's thinking like tuk-tuk. What are some of the...
We got two of those.
But these are big vehicles.
Oh, we have literally from the tuk-tuk to the excavator from Skyfall, which is my fault. So back in when was Skyfall? 2012, yeah. So I had just started at Caterpillar in their marketing group, and Skyfall came out, and I was like, I'm going to get that for the foundation. That's my goal while I'm employed at Caterpillar. Not to sell more yellow machines, but to get one machine. So all the time I was at Caterpillar, I spent too many hours literally chasing this thing around the world by email and phone calls. Found it was in China, it had been sent for a trade show in China, then it was in the Middle East, and then it disappeared. And long story short, basically I left Caterpillar at the end of 2015 because they were downsizing and making cuts and all that fun corporate stuff. And then I found out that Caterpillar Financial had the machine, and so I called somebody I knew at Caterpillar Financial, and he was like, oh no, the CEO says he's going to build this brand new headquarters, and he wants that for the foyer of the headquarters, so you can't have it. Yeah. I ad-libbed that last bit, by the way. So I thought that was it. And then that CEO got fired. And a new CEO came in and he says, we're not only not building a new corporate headquarters, we're actually moving the corporate headquarters to Chicago and Texas. So I was like, they don't need the Caterpillar, the excavator anymore. So I emailed the new CEO, who of course just sent the email down, whatever, chain of command. And eventually got an email from a guy who's like, actually, we've written that off the books. It's not an asset anymore. It's sitting in a warehouse in Illinois. If you can get a low loader, you can have it.
Wow.
You have never seen a bunch of guys hire a low loader so quickly. We even made the local news about turning up with this low loader and taking this James Bond excavator. And yeah, we've had it ever since. And the problem is our new home, the doors aren't big enough. So it's actually sitting out somewhere else on the tarpaulin. So if you know anybody who wants an excavator to display, just let me know.
I'm looking at my wife. There's no way she's going to let me. Damn it. Kyle, we were so close. So close. I will say this too. One of the things, and Alan hinted towards this year, probably more than ever, I would say, the Ian Fleming Foundation and its senior-most people and storytellers are going around the world. Some of them are going to Jamaica, some of them are going to California, you just came back from London, all different places to really spread this word and message. We are extremely fortunate to have Alan here, not just tonight, but to tomorrow as well. He's going to be there the whole time, setting up the table. I hear he's got goodies for people, but I also want to give people the opportunity to also ask questions. I don't want to be the only one to interview. So does anybody have a question? I'll be like Phil Donahue and run into the... Yes. Oh, all the way in the back. Good. No. You'll hurt your throat like me.
How did the foundation form? Who started it? What was the purpose behind it?
Yeah.
Why does it exist?
It's very good question. The foundation is 34 years old, and it started with the Neptune submarine from For Your Eyes Only. What happened was, after that movie wrapped, as was the common practice at that time, Ian basically just left the submarine, and by various routes, it ended up in New York with a diving school who were going to throw it off the side of a ship and sink it to be used for on-wreck diving training. And somebody at Eon, John Cork will probably know, but I can't remember, called John Cork and Mike Van Bruglicum, if you know him, and said, if you guys can get some money together, how about you save this submarine? And that's what they did, and it just sort of grew from there. It started with the submarine. The idea originally was to put together a James Bond vehicle museum somewhere in the Midwest. That was the original charter, but over the years that really just became, not a practical thing, but also, people were like, oh, you're the guys with the Bond cars. I found a X or a Y, and or you've got some idiot who brings them an excavator. And it sort of just grew to the point where, like I say, we now have 40 vehicles, literally from submarines, helicopters, planes. I almost said trains. We don't have a train. Stay tuned. Actually, I was at the Neem Valley Railway where they shot Octopussy the other day, and there was the Octopussy circus carriage under tarpaulin, and I was like, ooh. But yeah, we have cars, motorcycles, boats, and odd things like the wet bike and the paravane and the hang glider from Moonraker. So yeah, I have a nice slideshow you can see tomorrow that has basically all the vehicles, and I'm more than happy to talk all the backstories around any of them. So great question, but basically it started with a submarine.
Hi. You spoke on how that Thunderball board game was your introduction to James Bond, and he was the coolest guy. Do you recall the first vehicle you saw that was like, that's the coolest vehicle?
You mean in real life?
I mean in the James Bond movie.
Oh, in a movie?
Yes.
I mean, I had the Corgi DB5, so it had to be that. But I will say the first one I saw in real life was the Lotus Esprit from For Your Eyes Only, the sort of the bronze one. It was on a promotional tour when the movie came out, and I can't remember why, but my father got invited to some event and the car was there, so I got to sit in it when I was, I don't know, can't remember the age, but when I was a teenager, and I was like, ooh. And then again, that was part of the thing that eventually led to the foundation, is like, oh, these are real vehicles, you can actually interact with them and they move around and stuff, so yeah.
Can you talk about the other things the Ian Fleming Foundation does besides the vehicles?
Yeah, like I said, we are really starting to focus on the Fleming side, which is around the literacy grants, the literacy awards. We've got a couple of other programs. We used to do a Bond magazine called GoldenEye. I will have copies of old issues tomorrow for folks who want to add to their collection. And we've talked about resurrecting that more as a Fleming literacy magazine, but no time scale on that yet. So we're talking again with the University of Illinois on extending the scholarship program. We're looking at adding more things to the rare manuscripts collection. And like I said, we've just done this Teen Literacy Award when it was at Ian Fleming Publications last week. We were throwing around some other ideas for some other potential Fleming-based awards. But a lot of that is going to depend on what we can raise through fundraising, to be honest, because we need enough in the endowment fund to be able to do those sort of things. So we've got a lot of plans around that area, but a lot of it really is dependent on raising the money through fundraising.
I will say one thing too. I mean, this is almost a duh statement, but here we go. One thing we can do is follow them on social media. They've become, and they have been, very good about communicating sort of next intentions and forecasting their work, etc. So we can follow that along.
Yeah, just to say that there's an Ian Fleming Foundation official page on Facebook. There's also an Ian Fleming Foundation community group on Facebook, which we manage on behalf of the Bond community. And we're on Instagram and Threads and LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn and so forth. So we're really starting to open up the social media presence as well.
There are people everywhere. We have a question?
First of all, thank you so much for being here on behalf of everybody here.
My pleasure.
I would just love to get your personal feelings and thoughts on the overlap of literary Bond and cinematic Bond, given that you have such a great history with the character and going back to the comics and the books and seeing the movies in the theater from a young age. I would just love to get your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Well, that's a big question.
It's a good one. You win.
For me, it always comes back to Fleming personally. I think that's, even though, like I said, Majesties was my first intro to the movies, it is actually the movie that's closest to Fleming. And when I started to read Fleming, it was like there were so many good stories here, the writing's so good, the description's so good, the way it Fleming evokes a period, a time, a way of life, a lifestyle. I don't think the movies have ever got close to that. And for me, the movies, if you look at my top 5 movie list, they're all the ones that are based on Fleming.
What are they?
Well, it's From Russia with Love, it's Majesties, it's For Your Eyes Only, which is 2 great, that's my favourite Roger Moore one. In Casino Royale, and you're going to throw things at me now, even Casino Royale 67.
Well, that's all the time we have.
Which actually has more Fleming content than You Only Live Twice, which came out the same year.
If only you were more passionate about this.
By the way, I'm writing a book about Casino Royale 67, so which will be out in 2027. For me, it always comes back to Fleming. And to your point earlier, I've done because I've written 2 books about Bond, the Bond on comics. My wife and I wrote the James Bond Lexicon, which is an encyclopedia of the fictional worlds of Bond, and we basically read everything and watched everything. Yes, I watched 65 episodes of James Bond Jr. for that book. And my wife reread all the comics, and we're still married, it's amazing. But doing that, you could see all the influences that in all the other media that always call back to Fleming. So that's one of the things that, while I was getting involved with the Ian Fleming Foundation and was just seeing this focus on the vehicles, I was like, we could be doing so much more with this foundation and where it's going. And other people were starting to see the same thing, that by taking it back and focusing on Fleming, you'll notice when I said the mission statement, I said it's to leverage the legacy of Ian Fleming and James Bond, not James Bond. And that's what we want to do, is introduce students, filmmakers, writers, readers to Fleming, which is why we're doing this teen literacy grant to open up Fleming to a whole new audience. One of the cool things about what we've done in the New York grant is that has been completely around the fact that Fleming went to upstate New York and hung around the Adirondacks to write The Spy Who Loved Me. And that whole program of Vice President Frieda Toth went up to the school a couple of weeks ago and did a whole talk about Fleming in the Adirondacks. So we're pushing, if you like, or promoting the idea that all this is because of Fleming rather than James Bond movies. But I have done so many comics conventions, science fiction conventions, shows and stuff over the years where I have books, have the 2 James Bond books on my table, and people come up to me and say, I'm the world's biggest James Bond fan. I'm like, are you? And then they go, oh, there was books too? Yeah. So I see all this as an opportunity to educate people on Fleming. And Bond, God bless him, is sort of a spin-off of that. Again, I was having that conversation, exact conversation with the folks at Ian Fleming Publications last week, dropping names. Because I was sat in their conference room, which is making me so jealous. It is literally wall on wall of pretty much every edition of Fleming's Bonds that you could imagine. And right in the middle of this wall was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And I'm like, we should be doing more with that.
Yeah.
So if anybody has Chitty Chitty Bang Bang for sale, no, I mean, seriously, they did a great exhibit in the UK last year with Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And Ian Fleming Publications is like, we should be doing that in the States too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. We want to thank everybody. The nice and good news is Alan is going to be here tomorrow.
Yep.
So you'll be able to tug on his ear, see the wonderful things that he brought. Alan, thank you so much for joining
Thank you.
us. The storyteller. Ladies and gentlemen, Alan Porter. Okay, the throng is still here. We just heard Alan Porter, amazing stories. I had to call it quits because we could have gone all night with him, and he's speaking to some people. We've got a lovely couple that have come from Arizona. What did you think of the conversation?
It was really good. Wonderful. Yes.
Wonderful, right?
Yeah.
A lot of
Great
fun.
to hear about what the foundation's doing.
And all this before Gather All even starts, which is crazy. You've got John Broughton and friend out here, everybody hanging out. You've got a celebrity guest star, Danielle. I don't know. I know I'll get that later. But we've got everybody milling about over here. What's great is that everybody just is having nice, organic conversations. Just some basic things going on here. We've got, obviously, the brothers who did a great job with the marksmanship. We've got a man who's building his own watch case. We've got a lot of things. You're talking, but of course we're talking watches. What else would we be talking about? Over here we also have an amazing poster. This is a Hindu poster from Quantum of Solace. And what's great is these type of events bring people together like, what? Matt Spazer and Ryan from Analyze Mr. By the way, you guys look great tonight.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, wow.
I mean, look who's talking. Look who's talking. Tom Ford, head to toe, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm what they call damaged goods. I got nothing going on you guys for sure. All right, I'm just making the rounds. Look at this. We've got Adam, we've got Clyde, we've got, oh my gosh, it's Kyle again. Everybody looking spiffy. We've got Jason Kim all the way from the Arctic Circle.
Yes, sir.
Amazing. Not destroyed by polar bear. We got Ken Stauffer. Hey, how you doing? Mr. George Clooney himself. I mean, seriously, if he's Daniel Craig, then he's George Clooney.
Perfect. We're about to see behind us.
Yeah, just a little more Korean, but yeah. You got your tall drinks of water, that's all I know. And look at this motley crew over here. Oh my God. You got Gallagher. You got Mike McCloskey. Back from the dead. And we got Alex Lamas. Now, Alex, are you contractually obligated to wear a turtleneck?
Yes.
All right. I think you have literally bolts on your neck, and that's what I think you're hiding.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yep. No, well, scars.
Look at the scars.
I've been hanged a couple of times.
I'm just saying, you've got all these different things. Oh my gosh, look who it is. It's Josh. Oh, he's taking a picture for me with that. All right. So listen. I'm filming and we're taking a picture. This is what's wrong with the world. But hey, listen, I'm going to sign off for now. We've got an amazing day tomorrow with Gather All, the main event, and of course Quantum of Solace. They're all agreed. We'll see you all later. Take care. We are signing off. Thanks for watching The Bond Experience. If you like what you saw, why don't you subscribe to the channel by clicking this button right here. We'll keep you up on everything new that's happening in the world of Bond. And speaking of something new, here's something new just for you because we know you so well. Talk to you soon.